Welcome everyone. This is Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden and I will be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about the 3 levels of the subconscious mind. Now, when we look at the 3 levels of the subconscious mind, we typically touch on the top 2 or the 2 that we pay attention to the most. That's going to be your conscious and your subconscious, or preconscious is what we're going to be talking about today. Those 2 areas are going to be the top parts. One's the surface level, one's like the base level area. However, there is another part we need to be paying attention to, and that's going to be the unconscious mind. And I remember early on in Coaching in Session, probably like episode 20-ish, maybe 18, maybe even sooner than that, when I had an interview with Anshu Todi. She's a life coach also. You can go check out that interview with her and myself and check out her page and check out all the things that she's doing. She's doing wonderful things. But just getting into the conversation that we had, one of the questions she asked me was, well, can we talk about the different types of conscious minds? So we talked about the conscious mind, we talked about the subconscious mind, preconscious mind, and we talked about the unconscious mind. As time went on, as mindset went on, as learning went on, we learn more, we become more profound in our teachings. Same thing is true in my business. From where I started to where I am today, night and day. And that's a good thing. Yes, you start off and you're equipped, you're ready, but are you as skilled as you were day one? You always are better. Similar to how you graduate college, maybe now you're a doctor or you're a lawyer, and you have the knowledge, you have the book knowledge, you might even have some real world experience, but it's not until you put it to the test. You gain some wisdom, you get more mentors, you get more coaches, you learn more. And then you can help more people in a deeper, more profound way. And that's what happened here. Because I have learned that these levels of subconscious are more than just what we think about or what we thought about or how we will think about. It goes deeper than that. And today we're going to be explaining it in the ideology of Freud's explanation, the 3 levels of subconscious, using the iceberg method. So let's take a look at our most recent blog and then begin to take apart these 3 levels of consciousness. If you're new to the channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and to share this video and your audio to help build a community of like-minded individuals and to help build a community of people who know about these 3 levels of consciousness. Because these 3 levels of consciousness are going to be, just as I said earlier, it's going to be dealing with your conscious mind, your preconscious or your subconscious mind, and your unconscious mind. Now, in this blog article, we do go into depth on all of the different consciousness. We give explanations, and then we even make it a little bit of fun in the end, because it's important that we understand that the subconscious, that the conscious, that the unconscious, in no order, are going to be important to our mindset, to our growth, to our success, to our happiness. So if we know that's the case, why are we not mastering these 3 levels? It can stem from your unconscious. So it's important that you do read this blog. We go into detail that we're not going to get into today in the podcast, about a short 10-minute read. It took me about 10 minutes to read this. When I was done, I was like, this is insightful, but I want it more. And this is what I want this episode to bring to you, more than just what this article is going to give you. Because again, later when we look at the example of Freud's iceberg theory, you're going to understand that it's bigger than what we think. It's bigger than just what we see. So let's start to break down this blog, what's under the surface, the 3 levels of consciousness. Now that we have a foundation to build a conversation on, the conscious mind is going to be dealing with our focused thoughts. Typically, when you're going through the day and you're making choices, it's going to be highly conscious. You know what you're doing. If I pick up these glasses, for example, if you are a listener, I'm picking up some glasses. I had to make the conscious choice to do that, to pick them up. We can also do things unconsciously. So for example, I'm blinking, I'm breathing. Those are unconscious behaviors from myself. We will talk about the idea of unconscious in a minute that are going to be things that maybe say on the basic level of unconscious, but we are going to be breaking it down from the top to the bottom, and then again from the bottom to the top. So when we look at this diagram that I'm going to be just inserting here, there's going to be 3 levels of this iceberg. The top level is going to be what's above the surface. that you can see very easily. And that's going to be like our perceived thoughts. This is going to be, again, easily visible to us. If I'm thinking about something, I'm going to say this is my conscious mind talking. If I'm making a choice, this is my conscious mind talking. We make a lot of conscious choices in our days. It's also going to be a part of our decision. So we make a conscious choice to do something. It's a decision we made. If you're familiar with decision fatigue, that is exactly what it is. So we start to make poor choices after so many decisions. Then we get into the preconscious, which is also known as the subconscious, which is going to be underneath the water level of this iceberg. So that's going to be our stored memory, our knowledge, our information. This you can see if you look down into the water. Now, you don't know how big an iceberg is until you're right in front of it or you're swimming in the water right next to it. It's massive, and our preconscious is massive. It is one of the essential roles in mindset. Then we get down to the very bottom of this iceberg, which is going to be including our instincts, our fears, our self-motives. And that right there is going to be almost like the foundation, but it's like the mixing of the concrete more so than the foundation. The foundation is still going to predominantly be the subconscious. But our unconscious is important because if you mix the concrete wrong, then we're not going to have a solid subconscious. So every single step is important. Every single level has its importance. And we are going to be breaking down those 3 levels now even deeper than what we just talked about. So as I said, when we're looking at our subconscious, we are going to be looking at the world around us. We're going to be thinking about our feelings, our sensations. We're going to be thinking about all the things we're going to be doing in our day or tomorrow, our rational thinking, our decision making, as I said, our day-to-day life. Most people go to work Monday through Friday. They work the 9 to 5. So your conscious mind is just going to be in that mindset of a 9 to 5 worker. I have to work Monday through Friday. You don't like Mondays. You dread Sundays because Sundays are the last day of the weekend, but you're so excited for Fridays. So we are in that consciousness of that 9 to 5 worker. We're not going to talk about that 9 to 5 worker consciousness, but what you do is that conscious level of thinking. So understanding that conscious level and understanding your choices is going to be important. But the conversation today is not so much of looking at the conscious only, but getting into our true way of thinking, which is going to be our subconscious or preconscious. Now, our preconscious is going to be that second voice. So, for example, you might be talking with your friends and you're like, oh, I'm going to go skydiving with you. We're going skydiving. Maybe you're drunk and maybe you're just talking. Then the next day comes and your subconscious is like, what were you thinking? Or right after the conversation, what did you just agree to? Because now you have some time to think about what you just committed to. This is akin to the brain hacks that we talked about. Mel Robbins has a great brain hack where she talks about you have 5 seconds before the subconscious mind becomes activated. And then you start to think about, well, do I really want to do this? Do I want to go to the gym? Do I want to eat healthy? Do I want to do whatever I'm supposed to be doing? I would rather just sit on the sofa and watch TV. That sounds more enjoyable. So our conscious mind right there is that conversation. The subconscious is saying, are we giving the body, the brain, the requirements that it needs in order to get to that level? So subconscious is important. I say is maybe the most important part to mindset. For the reason being, it's going to be the storehouse for all of our information, our memories, our emotions, our patterns and behaviors. That right there is going to be the driving force for us to take action in our day. Most people just don't have enough good action in their day. Most people just kind of go through life and they say, you know what? I'm just going through life. This is what life is. Nothing wrong with that. But if you want more out of life, what are you doing? And we do have to emphasize, well, what type of awareness do we need to create to pay attention to these 3 levels? And that's what we're going to be talking about just momentarily. I talk about how we forget as we grow up to listen to ourselves. When we are young, we are just keen on imagination. We know all the stuff. We are making up stories and we're making up games. And as we grow, we lose that edge. We lose that ability almost. But we all have it within us because we had it within us when we were younger. So if we have that ability to be imaginative, to be reflective, to be aware of what's going on, then we can say, you know what? I'm going to use my knowledge in order to make my life better. But yet many people don't do that. Many people just operate on a conscious level. The reason they operate on the conscious level is because their unconscious level is actually not congruent with the actions of the subconscious level. So your unconscious level is full of fear, full of doubt, full of limiting beliefs. And this stems from so many different things. It could be our parents, it could be our teachers, it could be just our circumstance, our environment, our, the behaviors that we see. And we say, all right, this is a fear for me. This is something I learned. So parents, you have to do a good job when raising your kids that you have these 3 levels to be paying attention to, because unconsciously your kids will learn things. For example, if I'm on the phone all the time, and I am on the phone quite a bit, I'm going to be, I'm talking to a client. My kid might be like, hey, I'm talking to a client. That's an unconscious thing. They mimicked me unconsciously because it's like, oh, I'm seeing this. This is what it is. If you yell at a kid, now they're like, wait, what did I do? Because they don't have enough information yet. They are still new to this world. And if we think about how children grow up, they are growing up, their brain is still developing. And I mean, if we look at their prefrontal cortex, it is not even fully developed until someone's like 25 to 28. So it is ridiculous of us as parents and educators and teachers to hold these children to such a high regard in the sense of development. Now, we still nurture them. We still care for them. We hold them to our expectations, but developmentally, they're just not ready. It's similar to how if you tell a kid to lift 215 pounds on a bench. All right, son, you're now 6 years old. You're going to lift what I can lift. That makes no sense. And it's the same thing with the brain's development. So a kid is going to be bad. They're going to do these things that make you want to pull your hair out and yell at them and maybe punish them. But that's just them learning. That's just them experimenting. That's how they gather information. So they're building a data pool of information, and it is us as parents to guide what type of information they're bringing in. Yes, they can be very curious, and that curiosity can cause some hardships for us. Maybe you got a few more gray hairs in your head because raising kids can be very difficult. However, I am going to be talking about this in a future episode too, because this is important for parents, and I just don't want to make this episode about parents. This is about the 3 levels of consciousness. But this part is important too. We are going to spend about 90 to 95% of our time with our children by the time they're 18 years old. So that means all the time you're spending with them right now, by the time they're 18, they're going to kind of go off and they're going to do their own thing. And you're not going to spend time with them anymore. Yes, you're going to get grandkids in the future, and you can spend time with those grandkids, and that could be your new 90%. But in reality, kids grow up, and so does our mind develop. So if we know our unconscious is going to be structured from our upbringing, from how our parents raised us, from how we went through the school system and become indoctrinated and just following the system, doing what we're told, and then we start to form our subconscious, and it has to be, again, congruent with our fears. Okay, I have to be accepted. Peer acceptance is a big one. I have to sit down and raise my hand. Again, unconscious of fear, because the moment you step out of line, now you are a class clown. Now you are behavioral challenged. Maybe you are going to be diagnosed with some type of ADHD, ADD, because you are just hyperactive. Yeah, you're just being a kid. Yet you're just learning. However, something amazing happens, and this is a study. This is from people who understand children. They would take these problem kids and they would put them in a situation where they can allow their energy to flourish. I will say, in a non-regimented and structured environment for teaching, these children shine. They become the leaders. All right, everyone, we're going to do this. And they lead the pack, and they make sure everyone is protected. They make sure everything is provided at the unconscious instinctual level. Yet, if we put them in a classroom setting, they don't shine because they're just not there. We look at the schools, we look at the levels of consciousness and how we grow up. Our unconscious is skewed. So a lot of people, they do have to do unconscious work. People think sometimes, especially when it comes to mindset, that they just do the subconscious and the conscious work and everything is going to be okay in their life. Yes, a lot of things are going to change if you just focus on those two things. But if you don't get down and dirty and into the unconscious, you're going to find that you're going to have recurring habits, recurring negative behaviors, all because you didn't want to face the dark truth sometimes. Face our fears. Whatever that fear is, fear of public speaking, fear of being alone, fear of being ridiculed. Not everyone in this world is going to like you. And you don't want everyone in this world to like you. You want to make sure that you're going through life and you're living the way you want to live. And it's important that you understand that. The idea I have in this blog, and it gets down to the end, I'm not going to tell the whole thing. Again, read the blog. Idea of legacy. We can change our 3 levels of consciousness, but that's the first part. I changed my 3 levels of conscious. How can I do that for my family now? How can I do that for my wife? How can I do that for my kid? I don't really have to do it for my parents or anything. They're older. They already made their choices. So now I'm building my legacy. What are those 3 levels of consciousness? How do I want that to be conveyed and relayed to them? So I'm building the foundation for this iceberg. Though the world might see just the top part, what I'm doing is the bottom level stuff, the important stuff, what keeps the top afloat. For most people, they're going to start from the top and make their way down to the bottom, but then they stop because they realize it's too much work. So people will give themselves affirmation. They'll give themselves vision boards. They'll give themselves New Year's resolutions. And guess what? They don't make much progress because they stop somewhere in the subconscious and the preconscious. Because now the preconscious is saying, hey, buddy, whoa, what's going on? You're exerting too much energy. What would happen in this life right now if something came and harmed us or was trying to get us? Our fears, our unconscious now, are controlling our subconscious. Yet we don't pass those fears. We say, you know what, you're right. Why am I exerting all of this energy in order to work out, in order to maybe be more in my life when the result is not guaranteed? So most people are going to stop in the subconscious area. Yet, this is why it's the most important area, because we do have to understand this is going to be the area with maybe the most obstacles. But then we get into the unconscious when we work from the top to the bottom, and we have to go in our dirty laundry. We have to go through the baggage. We have to go through all the hardship, all the fears, all of our childhood circumstances and upbringings, and we have to understand it and then elevate ourselves from it. Sometimes people are going to say, oh, I had bad parents, they abused me and stuff like that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't understand that. Again, be aware, understand it, but don't allow yourself to be a victim to that circumstance. Understand that you can make the best just focusing on, well, how can I get rid of these fears or these instincts that don't benefit what I'm trying to go for in the future? So there's going to be people in your life that are going to push and they're going to make some great changes in their life. Now, even though they make these great changes, their unconscious has changed, they have a great subconscious mind, a great mindset, their consciousness is going to be walking the walk and talking the talk. They show up every single day. Yet, their kids that come after them, guess what happens? Oh, they don't want to do anything. They want to play video games and they want to do social media and stuff like that. Not saying that they can't. Just understand that the reason they do it is because we created an easy life for them. So what comes is we have to be poor in a sense to appreciate being rich. We have to have a struggle mindset in order to appreciate the moments of serenity and peace and prosperity. It has to be somewhere in the unconscious level. And people don't understand this. People think, well, I had a rough upbringing. This is my circumstance. Now that circumstance is going to be their subconscious mind. And then they start to, say consciously, oh, this is my life. And they become that victim. Yet we can make that change. And then we have to understand, how can I give my next generation, my kid, their kids, and so on, struggle after struggle after struggle, rather it being a cycle of tough times create strong men create easy times create weak men, and weak men create tough times. That cycle is going to be prevalent as long as we don't understand these 3 levels of consciousness and then implement a strategy and a plan to make sure it doesn't happen in our family. I do give some examples in the blog, and I'm going to be talking about this. I already talked about this, but I'm going to be talking about this in probably my next week's Wednesday episode, where I'm going to be talking about how we are focused on these 3 levels in the beginning, which is a good thing, but then how we have to shift our consciousness to not only focus on what we're doing right now, but what our actions are going to mean in about 100, 200 years. You're not going to be around anymore. And it's going to be one of those things of, well, why even bother if I'm not going to be around anymore? This is going to be, do you want to make a huge difference? Yes, you can make a difference. You can make a difference for the next 2 to 3 generations of your family. But if you want to create something that's even beyond that, it sounds almost dreamy, almost like a fantasy. But yet this fantasy can become reality. So this blog right here, what's under the surface, the 3 levels of consciousness. Again, they're going to be talking about the conscious mind, the subconscious or the preconscious, and then the unconscious mind, are going to help us understand, well, what are these 3 areas? What do these 3 areas do for our life? And then how to get out of this way of thinking, not only today, but for our future and our future generations. So all of this is a lot. It's a lot of work to go through these 3 levels and to implement action. Yes, today was almost like a surface level consciousness, basically, type of thinking. We did not go into the subconscious. We did not go into the unconscious. Yes, we talked about it. But all the things I said will only reach you at the conscious level. You're going to use what you have learned, what you have heard, and then that is going to maybe permeate into the subconscious. It probably won't, without coaching, go to the unconscious level because we are just not equipped. We're not trained to do it. We don't want to do it unless we have a trauma, unless we have a hardship. But most people, they want good in their life. How do we get that good in our life? How do we begin to take more action in our life? We have to give ourselves that choice of, I'm going to be more today. And the best way you can do that is by getting a coach, getting a mentor, getting a guide that's going to be there to support you and help your growth. And it's important that you work on these 3 levels of consciousness, but you don't allow that to be the only work that you do. There's so much more to growth and personal development. You can be more than where you are today. You just have to be conscious of it. Understand that the information that you have been told, if you're not living the life that you would like to be living, has some flaws and you need to make adjustments. So begin to make those adjustments today. Don't wait. Don't linger. Take action. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, you can email me coachinginsession@gmail.com. And I will see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone take care.